For countless generations, the Fertile Crescent was a crucible of conflict, a land where empires rose and fell and peoples clashed for dominance. Among the most enduring rivalries was that between the Israelites, a nation forged in covenant with their God, and the Philistines, formidable seafaring warriors who had settled along the coastal plains. Their animosity was deeply rooted, a struggle for land, sovereignty, and belief itself. The year is approximately 1000 BCE. The Philistines, sensing an opportunity to assert their supremacy, had gathered their forces for a decisive confrontation. They massed their battalions on a strategic ridge overlooking the valley of Elah, a crucial corridor linking the Philistine heartland to the Israelite highlands. Across the valley, entrenched on an opposing hillside, stood the army of Israel, led by their first king, Saul. Tension hung heavy in the air, thick as the morning mist. This was no ordinary skirmish. It was a battle for the very soul of the nations. Yet, as days turned into weeks, no direct engagement occurred. A psychological war was being waged, spearheaded not by tactical maneuvers, but by a singular, terrifying figure. From the Philistine ranks emerged a champion, a warrior whose very presence instilled dread. His name was Goliath, and he hailed from the ancient city of Gath, a stronghold of the Philistines. Goliath was no ordinary man. The biblical account describes him as standing 6 cubits and a span tall, a staggering height estimated to be over 9 feet. His sheer size alone was enough to terrify any opponent, but his appearance was matched by his formidable armament. He wore a bronze helmet, gleaming under the harsh sun, and a coat of scale armor also made of bronze, weighing a staggering 5,000 shekels, over 125 pounds. Greaves of bronze protected his legs, and a bronze javelin was slung between his shoulders. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's rod, a thick, heavy wooden pole, and its iron head alone weighed 600 shekels, nearly 15 pounds. Before him walked his shield-bearer, a testament to his status and the sheer weight of his equipment. For 40 agonizing days, morning and evening, Goliath strode into the valley between the two armies. With a booming voice that echoed off the hillsides, he issued his challenge. "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? And are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us." Then he would add, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." Each time Goliath's voice resonated through the valley, a wave of terror swept through the Israelite camp. King Saul and all Israel were dismayed and greatly afraid. Their finest warriors, men of courage and skill, recoiled from the prospect of facing such a monstrous adversary. The challenge was clear: single combat, a champion representing each side, with the fate of their nations hanging on the outcome. But who could possibly face Goliath? Who would risk certain death against a foe so utterly overwhelming? The days turned into a relentless torment, each sunrise bringing Goliath's taunts, each sunset leaving the Israelites in despair. No one stepped forward. Far from the battlefield, in the humble town of Bethlehem in Judah, lived a man named Jesse, a descendant of Perez, Judah's son. Jesse had 8 sons, and the 3 eldest, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shammah, had followed King Saul into battle against the Philistines. But his youngest son, David, was tasked with a more pastoral duty. David was a shepherd, tending his father's sheep in the fields surrounding Bethlehem. He was described as a young man, ruddy, with a fine appearance and handsome features. Though young, David was already known for his courage and skill. He had faced predators that threatened his flock, a lion and a bear, and had personally rescued lambs from their jaws. He was not just a shepherd, he was a protector, brave and resourceful. His solitude in the fields also fostered a deep connection with God. He spent hours contemplating the heavens, composing psalms, and honing his skills with a sling, a tool vital for driving away wild animals. One day, Jesse called David to him with a mission. "Take this ephah of roasted grain and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commander of their unit. See how your brothers are and bring back some assurance from them." So David rose early the next morning, leaving the sheep with another shepherd. He loaded the provisions and set off as his father had directed, traveling toward the valley of Elah. As he approached the camp, he heard the familiar clamor of battle. The Israelite army was shouting their war cry, preparing to engage in skirmish lines, though not full combat. David left his supplies with the quartermaster and ran to the front lines to greet his brothers. As he was talking with them, a familiar, terrifying roar echoed through the valley. It was Goliath. The Philistine champion once again emerged, issuing his defiant challenge, mocking the armies of Israel. David watched, stunned, as the Israelite soldiers scattered before Goliath, gripped by paralyzing fear. "Have you seen this man who keeps coming out?" they whispered amongst themselves. "He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage, and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel." But David was not thinking of reward. He was filled with outrage. He turned to the men standing near him and asked, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" His eldest brother, Eliab, heard him speaking and was furious. Perhaps he saw David's questions as a youthful boast, or an attempt to meddle where he didn't belong. "Why have you come down here?" Eliab demanded. "And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are, and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." But David simply replied, "Now, what have I done? Can't I even speak?" He turned away from Eliab and continued to inquire, the same questions burning on his heart. His words, expressing indignation rather than fear, began to spread through the camp. Eventually, someone overheard David and reported his sentiments to King Saul. Summoned to the king's tent, David stood before Saul, a young shepherd facing a battle-hardened monarch. Saul, towering over his subjects, himself a man chosen for his stature, looked at David with skepticism. "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him," Saul declared. "You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth." David, however, was undeterred. He spoke with a conviction that transcended his years, recounting his experiences as a shepherd. "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a lamb from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the lamb from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both the lion and the bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God." He continued, his voice steady. "The Lord who rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will rescue me from the hand of this Philistine." Saul, perhaps sensing an unusual spirit in the boy, or simply desperate, relented. "Go," he said, "and may the Lord be with you." The king then tried to equip David for battle. He dressed David in his own tunic, placed a bronze helmet on his head, and fastened his coat of armor. David strapped Saul's sword over his armor and tried to walk, but he found it impossible. He was unaccustomed to such heavy, cumbersome equipment. "I cannot go in these," he told Saul, "because I am not used to them." And so David took them off. He understood that true strength lay not in borrowed armor, but in familiar tools and, more importantly, in his faith. Instead of a sword and shield, David took up his shepherd's staff. From his simple pouch, he selected 5 smooth stones from the stream bed, and with his trusty sling in hand, he set out to meet Goliath. The scene was stark. On one side, the colossal, heavily armed Philistine champion, his shield-bearer preceding him. On the other, a slender youth, lightly clad, armed only with the tools of a shepherd. As Goliath approached, he looked David over with contempt. He saw only a boy, ruddy and handsome, not a fearsome warrior. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" Goliath sneered, cursing David by his gods. "Come here," he growled, "and I'll give your flesh to the birds and the wild animals." But David's spirit was not broken. He stood firm, his voice ringing with a conviction that stunned both armies. "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin," David declared, "but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. This very day I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." With that, Goliath began to move toward David, infuriated by the boy's audacity. David, without hesitation, ran quickly to meet him. He reached into his bag, took out a stone, and placed it in his sling. With a practiced, powerful swing, he hurled the stone. The projectile flew with incredible force and accuracy, striking Goliath squarely on his exposed forehead. The stone sank into his skull. The colossal giant staggered, then crumpled face down to the ground. The mighty champion, the terror of Israel, lay motionless. The Philistines were stunned. Their champion, their pride, had fallen to a mere boy. David rushed forward, stood over the fallen Goliath, and without a sword of his own, he drew Goliath's great sword from its sheath. With a decisive strike, he severed the giant's head, holding it aloft for all to see. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they cried out and turned and fled in disarray. The Israelite army, emboldened by David's incredible victory, rose up with a mighty shout and pursued their retreating enemies, slaughtering them all the way to Gath and Ekron. They plundered the Philistine camp, celebrating their miraculous deliverance. David, the young shepherd, returned to Jerusalem a hero, carrying Goliath's head as proof of his triumph. He placed Goliath's armor in his own tent, and later brought the giant's head to Jerusalem. His courage and faith had saved Israel. This improbable victory marked a turning point. It propelled David from obscurity to national hero, cementing his reputation as a man of profound courage and faith, chosen by God. He would go on to serve King Saul, endure trials, and ultimately ascend to the throne as one of Israel's greatest kings. The story of David and Goliath transcends its ancient setting. It is a timeless narrative, a testament to the power of faith over fear, the triumph of courage over overwhelming odds, and the profound truth that physical might does not always determine the victor. It teaches that true strength comes not from armor or stature, but from conviction, unwavering belief, and the courage to stand for what is right, even when facing a seemingly invincible giant. It reminds us that often the most significant victories are won not by the powerful, but by those who dare to believe in a power greater than themselves.